Thank you everyone for joining our demo today. The topic today is new features in Beest 11.04. We'll go over several things that changed in Beest 11.04 with respect to the previous version. And here's what I'm going to go over today. The first new change is involves how we export contours to Google Earth. We now export a legend as well. There's also another feature for locating source groups when you view data graphically. We'll go over that next. After that, we'll go over the changes in how we do partition model runs. Then we'll discuss a new feature in AER minutes and how that displays error messages. And finally, another new change in Beest in how to remove some of the input files if you did not want to put them into your model. All right, so the first new feature in Beest 11.04 has to do with exporting contours from Beest to Google Earth. And you view contours whenever you can view contours whenever you view the outputs graphically. Previously, we just exported the contours to Google Earth from Beest. Now we export the legend as well, which is the little figure on the upper left saying what the contour lines are and what their associated concentrations are. And we also made a small change in that now when we export the contour lines, they are thicker in Google Earth than before. And next, I have a couple of screenshots showing what that looks like. Okay, first in the first screenshot, we have a model that has been loaded in Beest, and for which I've already displayed the output and the concentrations in Beest. And then what you will see next is how that looks in Google Earth after that's exported. Okay, so again, this is the outputs in Beest, and then this is the same outputs in Google Earth. The part on the upper left here, which is the contours, is what's new now. The contours were in Google Earth before, but this part wasn't. So this is now new and will now be exported to Google Earth. You can actually hide this legend if you go on the left side where it says contours. If you scroll down a little bit, you will be able to deselect the legend and hide it if you so desire, or if you so choose. And you'll also notice that the contours are somewhat thick now. So now they send out in the background where you have lots of concentration values being shown. The next new feature in version 11.04 has to do with displaying inputs graphically. If you have custom source groups, then you can now tell Beest to search for them and display the area in your model where those source groups are located. To do that, you'll have to right-click somewhere on the display, select Find on the menu, and then say select Finding a Source Group. And then when you do that, you can select a source group and tell Beest to find that source group. And here's what that looks like. So here we have a model with a building and 4 sources, 2 to the east of the building and 2 to the west of the building. And in my model, I have also set up 2 source groups, east and west respectively, in my source group options. So this is where you say that you'll have user groups, and then you click this Define Sources and Group button to define what the groups are. So I've done that in my model, and I've called the groups east and west respectively. So after you do that in Beast, when you go back to the graphical inputs, you can right-click the mouse anywhere in the white area, and you'll see this menu pop up with the items shown here. And then after that, if you go to Find, you will now see this new item called Source Group. Previously, you were able to search for buildings, sources, and tanks, and now there's this new item called Source Group as well. So when you click that, this window appears where you select the source group you want to see. And then you have two options, either Find or Find and Zoom. And the second option actually zooms in on the location of the sources in your source group. For now, though, let's say we click the Find button, and what that does is it highlights just the sources in your selected group and grays out everything else so that these sources are highlighted. And again, if I were to click Find and Zoom, it'll also zoom in on just those two sources in my model. If you want to unhide everything, you go to this Find menu again and just click None, and that will just restore the usual way things are displayed. Or to go select the East group and tell Beast to find that group. So again, we tell it to find the sources in the source groups are highlighted on the screen, and everything else is sort of grayed out to point out where these sources are located. Next, we have some changes related to partitioned model runs. And in Beast, you can partition actually two models, AirMod for calculating your model concentrations, and AirMap, which calculates elevations for your modeling objects. What's new in this version is that now, whenever you start a partition model run with two or more partitions, Beast will display a dialog box for you with a Combine button. And what that allows you to do is immediately after the run is done, you can click the button and put together the output files, or combine the output files so as to get your unified modeling output files set. And you can do that immediately without going to the results menu. And in this version, we combine both the output files and the input files as well, to get a unified input file. And in addition to that, all of your output files are combined in a single step. So you don't have to combine files twice in case you have maximum daily files or max DCONT files or files like that. They just all get combined in one step. And what that looks like is that this dialog box at the top appears during your run. You can either click Cancel to close it, or wait for the run to finish and stay combined. When you do that, all of your output files will be combined, and you'll see the second question, the question in the second box, which says, do you want to delete the partition files? And here you can click yes or no. And if you do click yes, then only your combined output files will remain in your project folder. In your project folder. If you do choose to cancel and combine the files later, you can still go to the results menu in Beast and view this form, which allows you to combine the files manually. And in this case, I'm also combining the AirMod output files in the example here. What has also changed is that at the top of the screen here, we have simplified things a little bit. Now you only have to select now you have only one choice to make here. You're either combining AirMod output files or AirMap, which is the second selection here. So you don't have the multiple choices for AirMod output files that you had before. You just have one set of files, either AirMod, you can select AirMod, or AERMap. To get those files to be combined respectively. And again, if you go this route, you can also remove the output files after you're done. Sorry, remove the individual output files after you're done. Next up is a change we have in the AER minutes win data processor. And that program has a tab called Run, where you run the AER minute model that actually checks your inputs for you before you start the run, and displays messages about any errors it finds or invalid inputs that it finds before you start the run. And what's changed now is that you can actually double-click each of the error messages if you have any, and it'll take you to the tab where the inputs are invalid, or where the problematic inputs are located. Let me show you an example of that. So here I have again an example model run, and I've put in my inputs on the tabs on the left, and now I've gone to the Run tab, and it's telling me that I haven't specified the hourly wins file, which is one of the output files. If I double click on that second error message, error minute will then take me to the output tab, and you can see why it displayed the error message, because that input field, which is actually required, is empty. So error minute, it did display these error messages in the previous version, but you weren't able to click on them before to see where the problem is, and now you are able to do that. And finally, we have one other new feature in Beast related to how you set up the model in Beast. There are several places in Beast where you have to click a file button to select a file, such as background concentration files or ozone data files. And previously, if you entered one of those files by mistake, you couldn't actually clear it out of the setup. And now you can. What you can now do is select the file name with your mouse, and then press the backspace key to clear it out in Beast. And in this screenshot, I show how to do that. In this case, it's one of the control options files that I don't want. So to go into this input field, hold down the left mouse key and drag it across the file name to select the file name. And once that's done, which is what you see in the screenshot, I'll press the backspace key to get rid of the file. Let me actually go ahead and show you how that works in action. All right, so let's say I have this save file. And by the way, this applies to other files as well, like ozone files and so on, as I've said. So I just click the left mouse at the end of the file name, drag it across to select it, and then press the backspace key or the delete key. Both of those work. Okay, well that's the conclusion of our demo today. I will now go ahead and open the floor for questions. So go ahead and let me know if you have any questions.
Hey, Dimitri.
Yes.
Question for you. On that source select option there, if you've auto-created the source groups, will those show up in that list? Or is it just the user-defined ones that'll show up in that selection list?
I believe it's only the ones that you define, but let's take a look. Okay, so here's my model with those 4 sources. And you're saying if you also say auto create, right?
Yes, correct.
We'll create sources for each one of the sources. And no, it won't do that. It's only for the ones that you define.
Okay,
because,
all right.
Because if you auto create, then you can still find those sources with the previously available find source option.
Okay.
So you can go here to find each source. But if you create your own source groups, then you can find them with this new option.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
So no,
Thanks, Dimitri, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So no, it's only for the groups that you define. All right, are there other questions?